The saga kicks off with an immense volcano violently erupting under a burning sky. In the sprawling jungle below, we see armored warriors moving with purpose. But it's not just these heroes in this primordial world. There are terrifying monsters here too. As the determined adventurers push their way deeper into the untamed wilderness, a grotesque skeletal monster erupts from the trees right behind them. It unleashes a horrifying screech that echoes through the canopy, immediately alerting them to its deadly presence before it leaps forward for the kill. One of the men instantly responds and channels a shimmering blue aura around his form. He launches himself from the ground, soaring through the air like a missile, and slices the beast into ribbons of flesh and bone before elegantly touching back down. His power is overwhelming and absolutely absolute. He even hits that perfect, stylized anime pose right after his victory. It turns out all of that incredible action is just a high-impact advertisement for something called World's Dispatch. The advertisement screen declares that your future awaits. The main character is clearly filled with envy and desire watching this unfold. Just then, a man calls out to him and puts a firm hand on his shoulder, sharply asking why he is just standing around instead of actually working. The older man lectures that this is the fundamental problem with youngsters these days. He complains that they are always lost inside some silly little fantasy. The young man quickly apologizes for his distraction. The old foreman tells him he needs to clear away all of the vines right away. Our guy immediately affirms he will get it done and sighs to himself that on the very first day, he has already been marked by the boss. The old man keeps yapping about how things were back in his day. The young worker thinks to himself that he absolutely cannot get fired again. He knows he cannot afford for it to happen this time. He fiercely swings his sickle and starts hacking away at the thick, overgrown branches. The old man looks on, utterly surprised, as the young worker clears out the vines one after another with shocking speed and startling efficiency. Later on, we see the results of his work with all the cuttings neatly bagged up. The foreman says he cannot believe that there are still diligent young folk like this these days. As the young worker walks away from the job site, he thinks about how being a dispatcher is truly nothing more than a fantasy for someone like him. The narrative reveals a harsh truth. Earth has actually fallen into ruin. Just like an online game whose service has abruptly ended, Earth completely lost all of its precious vitality. An unknown and absolute being then revealed a single answer for survival, which was to dispatch to another world. Heroes called dispatchers then left the dying Earth to journey to other worlds. Humanity barely managed to survive only thanks to the vitality these dispatchers brought back with them. He holds nothing but desperate hopes to become a dispatcher himself, but he knows his current reality is so much different. He clutches his work tool, a sharp sickle, reminding himself of what his real life is. But deep down, he genuinely wishes he could become one of them. He heads for home after a long day, wondering if they will call him back in for work again tomorrow. He suddenly stops in front of the massive dispatcher reunion center. He notes that there are a lot of desperate people here today too, same as always. He pushes his way through the dense crowd, telling everyone that it is his turn now. We finally learn his name from a tired receptionist. A staff member looks up from a screen and asks if he is Mr. Oh Chansu. He confirms that yes, that is him. He asks the man if there has been any new progress in the investigation he filed. The receptionist immediately pulls up his account record on the screen. It details Oh Chance's balance for the dispatcher family search deposit, showing it is unpaid. The man bluntly tells him that this place is not running on thin air. He states that Chansu does not have enough funds to continue the investigation any further. The staff member coldly tells him to come back when he is ready with more money, and then he immediately calls for the next person in line. Chansu begs, asking if he could at least give him some small piece of news. He just wants to know which world they are even in. But a much larger man roughly shoves him aside from the counter, yelling that it is his turn now. Chansu finally leaves the chaotic building. He hears all the other people inside yelling and arguing that everyone there thinks they are the only ones who have real problems. He sighs heavily as he heads up the escalator stairs. He finally enters his small apartment, saying quietly that he is back. He drops his bag on the floor as a small piece of fruit rolls out from it. He then remembers a distant time. He recalls that when he was little, his father was a legendary top-ranked returnee. But as Earth's condition had grown much worse, his father was dispatched once again to fight for humanity. He remembers one specific day when they were playing together with a soccer ball. On that very day, his dad was taken away from him, disappearing into a portal. He never returned from that mission. Eventually, his mother tucked him into bed one night. She told him that she was going to go find his father and bring him back home. She said that he just needed to sleep all alone for a few nights while she was gone. She never returned to him either, leaving Chansu completely and utterly alone in the world. Now, after so many years have passed, even the memories of their faces have grown incredibly faint and blurry. Suddenly, a brilliant light from outside his window begins to illuminate everything in his dark room. He scrambles toward the window, leaning out and wondering what in the world is going on. As a giant, blindingly golden beam of energy descends from the heavens, it crashes violently into the distant earth. The sheer force of the impact sends him flying backwards into his apartment, slamming him hard against the wall. He painfully hits his head on the way down, causing a digital clock from a shelf above to fall and strike him squarely, knocking him completely unconscious. Some time passes. When he slowly begins to wake up again, he groans and wonders what on earth just happened. He looks over at his phone on the floor, which suddenly begins to ring and buzz with a disaster alert notification. The alert message states that there was severe turbulence caused by the re-entry of a figure known as returnee, but it also contains news of a state of emergency. It declares that the S-rank returnee is officially retiring from service. Chansu sits in total shock, asking himself what is going on right now. The report shows the returnee, who says that in the end, by failing to protect the god, he had lost every single dispatcher who accompanied him on the mission. He explains that he was tragically forced to return all alone. He can no longer perform dispatches, as he has now lost both the critical ability and the divine qualification. The famous hero continues that after much deliberation, he had no other choice but to announce his complete retirement. He humbly asks them all to please protect Earth in his stead. He begs the world not to lose hope for the future. Chansa declares out loud that this cannot be real at all. He cannot believe the hero not only completely failed a critical mission, but now he is also retiring for good. Just then, a quiet knock echoes from his front door. He wonders who could possibly be there. He walks cautiously towards the door, thinking to himself that there should not be anybody visiting him, especially at this late hour. We see through the peephole what is outside. It is a little white-gloved hand holding up a tablet that asks if he is Mr. O Chansu. The visitor is revealed to be a cute little rabbit wearing clothes. Chansu opens his door, asking aloud if this is some kind of elaborate prank. Then he looks down and sees the tiny talking rabbit and absolutely freaks out, screaming as he falls backward onto his apartment floor. The rabbit calmly peers in, asking again if he is Mr. O Chansu, right? But Chansu is just on the ground, freaking out at the sight of a talking animal. The small rabbit tells him to please calm down. It informs him that it brings wonderful news for him tonight. It formally congratulates him on officially becoming a dispatcher. Chansa demands to know what kind of complete nonsense this is. The little rabbit reassures him that it understands he must be utterly confused. But it insists that it is an undeniable fact that he has been officially chosen. The rabbit continues that if he is truly this suspicious, they can move the entire discussion to another, more appropriate location. As they begin their journey, they traverse through a long, starkly lit tunnel. The rabbit turns and asks him if he possesses any special skills whatsoever. Chansu asks exactly what it means by that question. The rabbit elaborates, explaining that most people who get this opportunity have at least one unique talent. Chansu admits that as he knows, he is not even qualified for dispatch in the first place, other than being somewhat good at trimming trees or flowers. He confesses that he does not have anything that could ever be called a special skill. The rabbit's expression shifts to one of genuine surprise. Chansu notices and asks if the creature really did not know this information about him. The rabbit quickly tells him that it is actually quite all right. It explains that there must be a profound reason for everything. It states that the fundamental fact that he was chosen will not change, so he should not worry himself over it. Chansu marvels, saying to himself that he cannot believe he has really come all the way to the official dispatch center. He wonders aloud if a real chance has finally arrived for him too. The rabbit now announces that they can go inside and continue their important talk. They are now standing before a truly gargantuan and imposing door. Chansu walks up to the monumental door, thinking that beyond this gateway is the very place where the dispatch actually happens. But he finds that he cannot get the impossibly heavy door to budge even a single inch. The rabbit impatiently asks what he is doing. It flatly states that the entrance is not that way at all, and there is no possible way that massive thing would ever open for him. Chansu, bewildered, asks if the tiny opening is really the entrance. The rabbit calmly tells him that is indeed correct, before asking if there is a problem with that. Chansa gets frustrated, saying that surely the rabbit can tell by just looking at it. He angrily asks how he is supposed to get inside through there. The rabbit coolly remarks that it has no problem doing so itself. An exasperated Chansu reminds the creature that is only because it is a small rabbit. He gives up, saying he does not even know why he was expecting anything different. He declares that he will just be going home now. The rabbit suddenly asks if he is sure he will be alright with that decision. It recites his past failures back to him, noting that he failed every single test he took. And in the end, it reminds him that he even received the official finding that he was completely unfit for dispatch. It pointedly asks if he truly thinks another incredible chance like today will ever come for him again. The rabbit then tells him he should not misunderstand its words. It clarifies that it was merely quoting from his own recorded statements, from his own file. The rabbit finishes by stating that in any case, it is a great shame that he wishes to return home. It drives the point home by saying that this is because he is a very special person who was chosen through immense and great difficulty. We see Chansu desperately crawling his way through the impossibly tiny rabbit's door. He wonders to himself what in the world he is even doing with his life right now. At the far end of the tight passage, a bright light shines. The rabbit's voice calls back, telling him to hurry up his slow pace. Chansu shouts back that he is going as absolutely fast as he possibly can. Inside, he emerges into a sleek, futuristic space and is immediately surprised. He remarks that it is a lot more organized and intact than he originally thought. The rabbit asks what exactly he was imagining it would be like. It then announces that there is a world that is perfectly suited for him. Chansu asks if there is truly a different world that fits each individual person. The rabbit confirms this is true, of course. It is a destination called block-type land grabbing. Chansu repeats the bizarre name back to the rabbit and asks what that is. The rabbit seems to wonder if he is genuinely unaware of this place. Chansu states that he has never once heard of it before in his entire life. He asks, full of suspicion, that surely it is not some kind of weird place. The rabbit gets visibly annoyed. It wonders why this human is pretending not to know what it is talking about. The rabbit then lets out a series of fake laughs. It patronizingly explains that he must not be aware that it is currently the absolute hottest destination these days. It continues, saying this unique world has the feature of receiving the divine protection of a being known as a god. Chansu immediately thinks back, remembering that Returnee also said that he had served a god during his missions. The rabbit quickly assures him that for his reference, he can rest assured that this situation has absolutely nothing to do with that recent tragic incident. Chansu then asks what kind of god they are talking about for his dispatch. The rabbit explains that according to the original rules of dispatch, a god is assigned completely at random to a new dispatcher. However, it offers a special deal. It says that if Chansu decides what to do right this very moment, it will specially grant him the exclusive opportunity to choose his own deity. The creature then pulls a set of glowing cards out of thin air, presenting them to him. It asks if he is now going to pick his own fate from these options. Chansu does not know what to do at all. He panics internally because he does not even know which one of these is a good option. The rabbit senses his hesitation and tells him that this is a truly rare occurrence. It pressures him, saying that a choice like this, and an incredible opportunity like this, will never, ever happen for him again. Chansu agrees, thinking to himself that the rabbit is right. He knows he does not have any idea when a chance like this will come his way again. He wonders why he is hesitating like such an idiot. He makes his move and impulsively picks the middle card, incredibly anxious about flipping it over. When he turns it over, a terrifying, giant skeleton figure erupts from the card's surface. It is accompanied by a swirling vortex of smaller, screaming skulls. Chansu lets out a terrified scream. The card he just pulled was for the entity called the God of Negation. It has some strange percentage listed at the very bottom of the card. The rabbit tells him to calm down, explaining that it is all just for dramatic effect. It asks him why he is so scared. Chansu demands to know why this god required a horrifying visual effect like this to begin with. He then asks what the God of Negation even is, commenting that the name alone sounds extremely unpleasant. He also points out that the probability thing on the card is weird as well. He asks if he can possibly draw another card. The rabbit cheerfully tells him that of course he can. Chansu thanks the creature for the second chance. This entire agonizing process continues over and over and over. He declares that this time will be for sure, but he continuously pulls the card for the God of Negation. He shouts that this whole thing has to be a total scam. He asks how it is possible that he gets the exact same one every single time. The rabbit calmly tells him that there is absolutely nothing wrong with the cards. It looks at him with a dead serious expression, telling him surely he understands this. Chansu starts to say that it is not that there is a problem with the cards, but then he notices the rabbit's face has become incredibly serious. The rabbit informs him that now is his last chance, and he must choose carefully. Chansu silently pleads that anything at all is fine at this point. He just does not want it to be the god of negation again. He desperately begs that it will be something else, anything else. As soon as he draws the new card, a gentle, beautiful floral aura begins emanating from it. He gasps, realizing that he finally got one that was not the dreaded god of negation. This card is for the goddess of abundance, and all it has for a visual effect is a single flower petal. He also notes that the probability listed for her is extremely small. He immediately starts dreaming about what this new goddess would even look like in person. The rabbit silently observes his expression, thinking his gaze is so incredibly dirty. It then breaks his daydream, asking if he wants another chance. Chansu asks what will happen if he decides on this one. The rabbit explains that he will then have to depart immediately. Chansu asks if his departure can be delayed at all. The rabbit questions why he needs to hesitate at a time like this. It explains that this is his golden chance to go beyond being just a simple dispatcher and finally become a legendary returner. Everyone on Earth will admire him. It even suggests that he might even be called a savior of humanity one day. The rabbit tells him to think carefully about his choice. It promises that a life completely different from any he has lived until now will surely unfold for him. Chansu agrees, thinking the rabbit is right. He realizes that if he stays on his current path like this, he will just be running in place forever. He knows that he needs to make the decision right now. A large status window immediately appears before him. It announces that he will now serve the goddess of abundance, congratulating him on his choice. It states that the image of his chosen god will now be revealed to him. He looks up to see the breathtaking deity looking down upon him from a divine realm. She welcomes Chansu to her service. The immense pressure from her presence alone is extremely intense. She calls him her prospective dispatcher. Then her image fades out of view. Chansu excitedly asks if that powerful image was truly her. He exclaims that just the pressure she emitted alone was absolutely crazy. He feels like he can now do anything at all. He then asks the rabbit where he needs to go next. The rabbit declares that his was an excellent choice. It pulls back a large curtain, revealing a swirling portal, and says that it is time for them to be on their way. Chansu screams for it to wait just a minute. The rabbit asks him what is wrong now. Chansu asks if he really has to go inside there. He points out that the menacing, chaotic portal does not look like it is in a good mood. The rabbit asks how he is telling it what an inanimate object is supposedly feeling. It tells him to look at it more closely. Chansu shouts that anyone can tell this thing is a crazy and dangerous-looking black hole. But still, he declares that he refuses to back down anymore. He declares that he will succeed this time and show them all what he can do. The rabbit gets tired of him just standing there waiting. It runs forward and kicks him straight into the swirling portal. Chansu screams out in pure rage and terror. The rabbit says calmly that it will be looking forward to his triumphant return. Suddenly we hear a new voice. It asks the rabbit why it did that just now. The rabbit responds that they already know why. It explains that direct intervention is absolutely forbidden. The other voice replies that they had told it that they absolutely could not lose this boy. The voice asks if the rabbit still has not given up on its god. The rabbit responds with defiance, stating, "Of course not." Chansu then starts to see a system loading screen appear directly in front of his eyes. He wonders what this thing is now. It is a system tip window that tells him a god's percentage signifies the actual size of their faction. He screams in realization that the number was not the probability of drawing the card, but the size of the god's entire faction. This means that he is practically the only person following her. There might be one more person, but it is effectively just him. As Chansu falls helplessly into the other world, he says that he cannot believe he is only learning this critical piece of information now. When he finally looks around at his new surroundings, he sees nothing but barren, dead lands and desolate ruins stretching out in front of him in every direction. He begins to laugh and then to cry, a manic energy overtaking him as he screams out loud that he is totally and completely screwed. He looks out at the dead world and shouts his disbelief into the uncaring wind. He addresses the deity he chose, stating that she said she was the goddess of bounty. He asks where in this entire desolate landscape anything could possibly be so bountiful. Just then, a green status window flashes to life in front of him. Chansu wonders what is wrong with the system window as well. The message welcomes him to the block-type world of digging. It declares that he is the apostle of bounty and his mission is to secure as many land rights as possible through digging. Chansa mutters that surely it is not this pathetic just because his goddess's influence is so small. He sees there is even a glaring typo in the system window which only annoys him more. He decides that instead of worrying about the system, he should just look around a bit. His priority now is that he needs to find the goddess. He then stumbles across a familiar object half buried in the dirt at his feet. It is a weathered scythe. He wonders if someone else used it and then simply threw it away. He thinks that it is strangely familiar, so it is actually nice to see a tool he knows. But then, a terrifying shadowy shape with glowing eyes materializes right behind him, scaring him completely. He gasps and thinks that surely it is not already a monster. He complains that he has not even met the goddess yet. He knows a monster is already here for him, so he absolutely does not want to die like this. He quickly decides to just threaten it with the scythe he just found. He lifts it high as the shadow creature makes a noise of pure fear too. Chansa then realizes that he was completely overreacting. The frightening shadow was cast by nothing but a tiny little hamster. He asks himself if he can even really call this thing a monster. He sees that it does not even look hostile at all. He still thinks that since it technically is a monster, maybe he will get something good if he manages to catch it. The tiny hamster begins to freak out completely. It shakes its head back and forth wildly, signaling no. Chansa decides, whatever. He reasons that as long as they do not swarm him, it should be fine to leave it alone for now. The hamster then hops off the nearby rock and starts to waddle away with purpose. Chansa asks where it thinks it is going. It suddenly turns and waves at him, clearly telling him that he should follow it. Chansa marvels that this tiny thing is surprisingly intelligent, and so he starts running right after it through the wasteland. He pants and complains that for a little thing, it sure is fast. He has no idea where in the world it is taking him. Eventually, it begins to chirp excitedly. He finds that it has led him to none other than a small pool of clean water. He immediately kneels down, cupping the liquid in his hands and chugging it as the little hamster does the same beside him. Chansu lets out a sigh of relief, remarking how refreshing it is, and even his new guide agrees with a squeak. He asks the creature if it lives here. He observes that it does not really seem like a good environment for a hamster to live in. He asks it if it knows by any chance where the goddess is, but it is far too busy rubbing its fluffy face and grooming itself to answer. He sighs, concluding that talking to this thing is probably completely impossible. Just then, the hamster starts pointing into the distance. Chansu wonders if it wants him to follow it again. So he gets up and starts doing exactly that. They make their way towards a single massive tree that is much larger than any of the others. He comments on how huge it is, but then notes that it is all dried up too, just like all the dead trees back on Earth. He takes another step and suddenly feels something crack beneath his foot with a nasty crunching sound. He looks down and sees he has just stomped on a tiny, shriveled piece of ginseng. The little hamster starts freaking out completely. It runs over to the crushed plant, grabbing onto it with its tiny paws and crying out in despair. Chansu quickly apologizes. Then the status window reappears, announcing that he has just discovered the god of this entire region. Chansu asks what the system is even talking about. He wonders where in the world the goddess actually is. The enraged hamster starts biting at his leg to get his attention. Chansu tells it that he is busy right now and that he will play with it later. But the hamster insists, pointing frantically at the crushed ginseng on the ground. It then makes a gesture of pure divinity, pantomiming the beautiful form of the goddess he saw in his vision. Then it immediately points back to the crushed ginseng. Chansu finally pieces it all together. He looks over in absolute horror, asking if that shriveled piece of ginseng is actually the god. He declares there is no way that is possible, because the goddess he saw was a very beautiful and powerful woman. He screams that there is no way she is some common ginseng root. He then sees a faint green light emanating off the crushed plant. He says that this has to be some kind of cruel joke. He yells that the goddess he saw was not some damn weed. The hamster then points to a new message box, showing him the fine print from their deal that clearly states the promotional image may differ from the actual product. Chansu finally realizes that he has been scammed. He thinks back to the card game, realizing that the land grabbing and the percentage were just foreshadowing for how bad this really was. He remembers that the percentage numbers even went up when he was just drawing the cards. At the time, he thought it was just some kind of system error. He now understands it was because the influence of the god of negation was actually growing with each draw. He says that he never would have thought it could be a good card when it just kept coming up that often, completely misunderstanding its power. He wonders if maybe the goddess ended up looking like this because her influence had waned so much. He then asks the hamster why she is not even waking up. His tiny companion is still crying over the plant. A horrible thought occurs to Chance. He asks out loud, his voice filled with dread, that surely he was not the one who dealt the final, fatal blow. He says first that he should try to give her some water, and he begins to carefully pour some over the shriveled root. The ginseng begins to magically heal itself right before his eyes. He exclaims that this is good and that he is going to continue giving her more water. This process continues over and over. We then hear the goddess's internal thoughts as she remarks how refreshing this is. She thinks that maybe it is finally raining. She cannot even remember the last time she had water, but she knows that it feels so good. But then she feels it is raining a little too much. She thinks that this is enough, because she is about to completely drown. She then wakes up in a panic, spitting out all the excess water. Chansu gets extremely excited, and so does the hamster. Chansu greets her formally as her apostle. He tells her that he is glad he finally got to meet his god. But she cannot even move properly as she feebly struggles just to wave one of her tiny roots at him. Chansu admits that he has absolutely no idea what to do now. The helpful status window reminds him that he can become much stronger by using his skills. He says he did not even know that he had any skills. He looks and sees a skill called Bounty's Blessing. There is no detailed explanation for it, but he assumes it is obviously for making crops more bountiful. And then he sees there is another one, an active skill called Bounty's Blessing Decapitate. He wonders if it truly means cutting off a head. He says that hopefully it does not mean beheading something else in order to live a bountiful life himself. He tells himself that he does not want a skill like that, and that there is no way his beautiful goddess would give him such a completely brutal skill. He asks her, his voice full of hope, that surely it is not what he thinks it is. She then slowly makes a gesture, dragging a root across her neck like a knife. It is clear that she means cutting off a head. He recoils, saying that he is not going to be able to do that. He asks her if she is really trying to get him to behead someone right now. She simply nods her tiny root head, showing that he is absolutely correct. He tries to rationalize it, thinking that since she is the goddess of bounty, she is probably just related to agriculture. He wonders aloud if that technical term also includes the act of slaughtering animals. He then slowly turns around, looking directly at the nervous little hamster. He says quietly that surely it is not what he thinks. He looks at his new companion with a cold gaze, wondering if the tiny hamster is included as a target as well. The little hamster looks up at him with pleading eyes. Chansu looks down with a shadow cast over his face. He declares quietly that he guesses he just cannot help being an apostle. He raises the scythe high above his head, preparing to bring it down. The tiny creature instantly freaks out. It dives behind the shriveled form of the goddess for protection. Chansu grits his teeth, telling it he does not want to do this either. He explains that it is all for the goddess. The goddess realizes she might get caught in the attack too. Both she and the hamster begin freaking out together, but their fear is suddenly directed at something new. Chansu stops his swing and turns his head, asking if something is there. What he sees rising from the earth is a grotesque, hulking monster. He questions what this thing is. The creature's dark form completely towers over him. The terrified hamster bravely stands its ground in front of the goddess. It acts as a tiny shield, stopping the monster from getting any closer. Chansu immediately realizes that the little guy is not the monster at all. He now knows that he was completely and utterly mistaken. This hulking abomination is the real thing. It is the target his new combat skill is truly meant for. He wonders for a moment if he can actually do this. He tightens his determined grip on the scythe's handle and then charges directly toward the monster. He realizes that he can see the monster's weakness so clearly. He knows exactly where he needs to cut to activate the decapitate skill. He launches himself off the ground with incredible speed. He readies the scythe midair. He slices clean through its massive head, sending the severed piece flying through the air. The hamster and the goddess are both completely surprised by his sudden power. The monster's body begins to fade away into dust, signifying that he has completely defeated it. He turns to the goddess, asking if she is all right. He points out that the little hamster protected her in that brief but critical moment. He bows his head in shame, apologizing for his terrible actions. He says that he made a huge misunderstanding. He begs the little hamster to forgive him for his mistake. The hamster seems to realize how easy it was to misunderstand the situation. It communicates that it is okay, giving him a friendly lick on the face in acceptance. Chansu gratefully thanks the small creature. He decides to give it a proper name, Hamtal. He explains that he thought they would surely need a name for it. He knows they are going to be together from this point on. Hamtal begins to dance with joy alongside the little goddess. The system window appears again and states that the monster's head will be automatically transported. This is due to the Decapitate skill's special effect. The monster was officially called an immortal ogre. His hunt progress shows he has killed 1 out of a question-marked total amount. He thinks to himself that immortal ogre is too scary of a name for his very first monster kill. The system provides another tip. It says the transported offering now completely belongs to the goddess. He turns to look back at the goddess and he sees her glowing with newfound vitality. He comments that her ginseng skin seems to have gotten a lot smoother already. He exclaims that if he just keeps doing this, she will surely return to her original bountiful form. He eagerly declares that he is going to go hunt some more of them right away. He is super excited for the hunt with his new friend Hamtal following right behind him too. He arrives in a new murky swamp area. He sees that there are tons of the immortal ogres shambling all about this place. The system window then appears before him with a new tip. It states that unidentified points now exist in his status. It explains that points are used to utilize the world system and that they cannot be traded between different people. He wonders when he even got these mysterious points. He says to himself that it definitely seems like a very good thing to have. But first, he knows he needs to deal with all of the menacing ogres that are surrounding him. He feels glad that he has this incredibly powerful Decapitate skill. It is not even remotely hard to use considering the sheer power he gets from it. On top of everything else, he realizes these mud monsters are laughably slow. He activates Decapitate again, instantly killing 2 of the monsters in one swift motion. The system immediately tells him that he now acquires points by hunting monsters. He decides that he will start by keeping it simple for now. He plans on catching a nice, even 100 of them. His hunt counter shows he has now killed a total of 4 of them. Sometime later, on his triumphant way back, Hamtal looks super happy by his side. The little creature playfully imitates Chansu's powerful fighting moves. Chansu laughs and remarks that anyone watching would probably think that Hamtal was the one who did all the actual fighting. They share a very friendly atmosphere as they head back to the tree. He casually wonders why the creature is even called an immortal ogre in the first place. The quest window shows he has now killed an impressive 101 of them. He thinks that they die far too easily to ever be called immortal. But he guesses that he will eventually find out the reason if he just keeps on defeating them all. He finally makes his way back to his goddess at the base of the great tree. He joyfully says that she has become even more bountiful than before. He is amazed because the effect is even greater than what he had originally thought. He is certain that at this impressive rate, she will return to her original powerful form very soon. The tiny ginseng goddess waves her little root arms at him. He wonders what he should do now. Then he quickly realizes that she was not just waving but she was actually gesturing. He understands that she is telling him she wants to be lifted up. He gently picks her up from the ground. He then starts to take her toward the branches of the giant tree. When she places her little root hand onto the bark, she gestures to him. Chansu asks if he needs to do it as well, and her look confirms that he does. A new system window appears with another tip. It says that he can now use the skill, Blessing of Abundance. It also warns him that all blessing-type skills will consume his hard-earned points. He immediately activates the powerful skill. A bright green light instantly begins to appear and emanate from his hands. Hamtal and the goddess both look completely surprised. A massive amount of life energy now flows from Chansu and directly into the dead tree. Its barren branches suddenly begin changing color. Vibrant green leaves immediately sprout out from the wood. The massive tree even grows much larger in its overall size. It is now completely covered in healthy green leaves and is also sprouting beautiful flowers and fruits. He breathes out, realizing that it is now done. He looks up and he sees a giant, perfect red apple. He reaches up and plucks it from the branch. He sees that it is nearly the size of a basketball. He says he has never once seen an apple like this back on Earth. He also notes that it is so incredibly heavy in his hands. He admits that he really wants to eat it right away. But he knows that first, he must offer the first successful harvest directly to his goddess. He gets a bit excited just looking at her. He says that he hopes she quickly returns to her former, powerful self. He does admit, however, that her little ginseng form is actually pretty cute too. The goddess then begins to drain all of the nutrients from the giant apple. The process looks incredibly strange and kind of freaky. He wonders just how she is able to absorb it all like that. He says to himself that it would probably be best for him not to ever get on her bad side. He then turns to his companion, telling Hamtal that they can finally eat as well. Hamtal gets super excited at the prospect. Chansu reminds himself that she is a goddess who grants a truly terrifying skill like decapitate. He knows he cannot let his guard down around her. But the fresh, juicy apple is just way too good for him to pass up. He admits that he is low-key getting addicted to the amazing taste of these apples. Meanwhile, his companion Hamtal already looks like it is in a complete food coma. A mysterious figure watches the scene unfold from the shadows of the forest. The hidden observer watches Chansu devour the apples, wondering what in the world is going on. The unknown entity recalls that he defeated so many powerful monsters in just a single day. It remembers that he restored the giant, ancient tree in just a mere instant. And now he is just mindlessly consuming all of the magical apples it produced. The observer is left to wonder a single, terrifying question. Where did such a truly monstrous person like this come from? The narrator provides us with some vital world lore. We learn that in the past, Abundance, the faction in charge of all food, was by no means a small force to be reckoned with. Their power was led entirely by their unmatched high-quality agricultural products. But when the malevolent faction of corruption began violently absorbing all of the other rival factions, Abundance had no real choice but to flee from such a truly massive and overwhelming power. To survive this new world, the people of Abundance had completely abandoned their peaceful trade and instead began hunting monsters for the very first time. However, the collective forces of Abundance were entirely unfit for direct combat, and so they tragically could not win even a single battle against their foes. As a last and desperate resort, they chose to modify their one basic skill. It was not originally a combat skill at all. They had to modify their last and most basic skill into one they could somehow use just to fight. But even so, the faction of Abundance was ultimately doomed to complete collapse. This was because it was never a true combat skill meant for cutting off the heads of actual living monsters. It was only a modified version of a gathering skill, one that now let them bring back the heads of animals or monsters that were already dead. The factions of Abundance and Warriors simply were not a good match for one another. That modification to their skill was the absolute best that they could do in their situation. Of course, the narrator continues, if one were to be immensely powerful, then it would not be entirely impossible, such as is now the case with Chansu. Seeing this incredible power, his new goddess gets a little scared of him. Chansu, oblivious to this, just politely asks her for another apple. She still just silently wonders how a powerful child like this even got to her territory. She thinks that whatever the ultimate reason may be, he is now officially hers to command. He looks down and sees his tiny goddess hugging onto his ankle with her little root arms. He worries aloud and asks her, surely she is not going to try absorbing him now. Later in the day, we see that Chansa has collected a ton of fresh apples, all packed into his basket. He mentions that the goddess has already fallen asleep for the night. He guesses she must have been so very tired from their long day. He carefully lays her down to rest on some of the ancient stone ruins. He then pats his companion's head and says that Hamtal has also worked hard today too. There is then a sudden and loud clap of thunder from the sky. Chansa looks over, worried, and says to himself that surely the goddess did not wake up just now. He sighs, complaining that eating only apples has still left him so incredibly hungry. He now knows for a fact that they are just not enough to sustain him. A bright system status window then appears in front of his face. It announces that a special delivery event is now currently in progress. He says aloud that since so much has crossed over from Earth to this world, he supposes even things like this can exist here too. He wonders how it works though. For a proper delivery, do they not need to know who he even is? He then turns to Hamtal, noting that his companion must be tired too. He decides that they can both rest first before anything else. He gently places Hamtal right by the sleeping goddess. He tells his little friend that he can also sleep under a cozy little blanket right beside her. Back in the original world, we see a towering modern skyscraper. This is the Temple of Reincarnation, which is most likely just a modern dispatch trading company. We see an incredibly angry woman storming her way through the office and directly into a man's private room. She is clearly extremely pissed off about something. Her senior looks up and asks her why she is here instead of going to do the delivery. She retorts, asking if he is surely kidding with her right now. She complains that she is already busy to death as it is. She shouts that there is no way this assignment makes any sense at all. A status window identifies her. Her name is Hasejin, and she is the apostle of reincarnation. She continues her rant, yelling about the out-of-area delivery. She states that it is a 3-day and 2-night business trip. She is also furious that she does not get paid a single extra coin for it. This is because of the current free shipping event they are running. And she complains that all of that is just so some unknown client can buy a few apples. On top of all that, she says the client told them they do not have any money, so they are trying to barter for the items with even more apples. She finally asks her senior if she did something wrong to have to deal with all of this nonsense. Her senior casually replies, not at all. He claims it is actually quite the opposite of that. He says it is because she is just so incredibly passionate about her work. He tells her that work is a good thing. But if she just keeps working overtime every single day, her body will not be able to hold out for much longer. He suggests that she should use a business trip like this as a convenient excuse to just take a nice, long break. He explains that if she stays here at the office, she will just throw herself at even more work as soon as a single task ends. So, she should just go and clear her head for a little bit. She calmly states that she knows the real reason is just because there is no one else that they can possibly send on this trip. Her senior admits that he did not think she would find out so easily. He then starts physically shoving her out of his private office. He tells her that maybe she will get lucky and even discover a brand new secret realm while she is out there. She asks him what kind of secret realm nonsense he is yapping on about now, and tells him that he needs to just die. He waves her off cheerfully, telling her to travel safely on her trip. Kids, who knows? He suggests that maybe something really good will come out of it when she finally returns from the mission. She lets out a heavy sigh, but then finally relents. She says that she is going now and will get it going. She opens up her own little system window to check on her tasks. She immediately asks why there are so many new orders for her again. She complains that if they had known she would have to go so far out of her designated area, they should have prepared all of this for her much earlier. She vows that this entire trip had better not be a complete waste of her valuable time. If it is, she promises that she will get really, really pissed. We find out that Chance has been doing literally nothing with his time except picking apples. Right now, he is happily playing a game of hide-and-seek with Hamtal. He is looking around the apple-filled grove while his friend is supposed to be hiding. But Hamtal is actually just happily eating some of the apples he was supposed to guard. Chansu easily spots the apple that his friend has been munching on. He thinks that maybe Hamtal would be hiding right behind it as a joke. He reaches down and grabs Hamtal from his hiding spot, and his companion starts to freak out, caught red-handed. Chansu laughs, telling Hamtal that he got him. He then scolds his friend, reminding him that he told him not to eat the trading apples. He knows, however, that Hamtal probably cannot even help himself. Chansu patiently says that he will tell him again. These apples are not for them to eat. They are strictly for trading. He tells Hamtal that they are supposed to meet someone very important today. He knows his little friend cannot keep messing around like this if they want to make a good impression. Chansu continues, saying that since the delivery person has come all this way here, he cannot afford to make a bad impression during their very first meeting. According to the information he got when he signed up for the delivery event, this world, true to its name, is divided up into territories that are all shaped like giant blocks. This is why it is called a block territory. It is currently going through a massive grand summon event, and the ultimate goal for everyone here is total conquest of all the blocks. He learned that though it mostly looks like just ordinary land, there is a large, shimmering wall at the edge of each territory. And in order to move to another block, a person needs a special movement ticket. There is only one ticket granted to each player each day. Chansu knows that around him right now, there is literally nothing at all. He calculates that even reaching the nearest friendly village would take at least a full week of travel. He knows he almost ended up living off of nothing but apples out of sheer desperation. So he thinks that it is absolutely amazing that this new delivery service is only taking a mere 2 days to arrive. He does not have a clue how they could possibly manage such a feat, but whatever the method is, he knows that they are getting him all set up for his stay here. He is even going to be getting a special cushion just for the goddess. He also thinks that if he does not want to end up like a shriveled mummy himself, he had better keep raising her affection toward him so that she does not decide to absorb his own life force instead. Just then, a menacing shadow passes overhead. He immediately recognizes what it is as he pulls out his trusty scythe. He remarks that even the monsters here seem to be offering a kind of delivery service. This is because, since yesterday, they have been showing up in his territory on their own in massive hordes. It really is an undying monster, just like they said it was. He guesses that it actually revives instead of dying, and that is a more accurate term for what it does. But whatever the specific case may be, he knows he is going to have to go and take them all down right now. He raises his scythe high above his head. He then starts making light and easy work of the entire group of monsters. One of them suddenly begins to raise its shadowy hand up for an attack. He turns his head just in time to spot it, easily dodging out of the way of the slow attack. He thinks that, as he expected, its movements have definitely gotten slightly faster since their last encounter. He wonders to himself if the monsters are all growing stronger as he fights, just like he is with his skills. But even so, he notes that it is still extremely weak, so he does not have to worry about the new speed whatsoever. As the latest batch of monsters begin to fade out of existence, we see Heisijin watching the entire scene from high above in the sky. She does not know what to say at all about what she has just witnessed. She is even wearing the little winged Hermes boots. She simply says out loud that what she just saw was absolutely crazy. She then watches as Chansu and Hamtal happily celebrate their latest victory together. But she badly mistakes his joyful expression, saying that from her view, he looks extremely evil. We learn even more about the monstrous immortal ogre. A narrator explains that because they had given out more points than any regular monsters, they were once a main hunting target for apostles in this world. But it was discovered that no matter how many times it was killed, it would inevitably resurrect itself the very next day, even stronger than it was before. Even if you were to move your entire block of territory away from it, it would just keep relentlessly chasing after you. It was known to be an incredibly persistent and terrifying monster. On top of all that, it also left a debilitating curse on its chosen target. It would slowly wear them down over time until they eventually and inevitably collapsed from exhaustion, which is exactly why it eventually became a terrifying creature that everybody chose to avoid at all costs, everybody except for him, as Heisijin is just watching him effortlessly fight a whole horde of them right now. She wonders aloud what kind of lunatic this guy is. She asks if he is really not afraid of the creature's powerful retaliation. She also does not see any sign of him trying to purify the debilitating curse either. She realizes that there is only one possible explanation for this feat of power. She comes to the conclusion that he must be a legendary swordmaster. But she also wonders why a powerful swordmaster would ever be picking apples of all things. She decides that it is probably better for her not to provoke him at all. She does not want to have to figure out what might happen to her if she were to somehow upset him. Chansu, however, is just staring intently at his glowing system status window. He celebrates, thinking that he just got way more points than he ever could have thought possible today. He notes that his progress bar has already increased by a whole 10%. It seems to be going up by around 5% each time he fights the immortal ogres. So if using the blessing skill on one single apple costs 1,000 points, he knows that hitting a quota of 100 a day is no problem for him at all. At first, he had wondered why there was ever a holy shrine in a desolate place like this. But now he thinks that maybe it was just because this block is actually a secret jackpot block of land. Heisijin finally lands on the ground directly behind him. She introduces herself to him, saying that she is from the Circulation Trading Company and that she is his delivery person. He is surprised she managed to find his remote location on her very first try. She replies coolly that he just sort of stood out from everything else around him. And since he is clearly someone who can handle a powerful undying ogre like it is a mere toy, she reminds herself that she cannot let her guard down around him. She tells herself that she should not, but then she cannot help but to see adorable little Hamtal. She internally squeals, calling him a cute little dumpling thing. She thinks to herself over and over that she just really wants to touch it, again and again and again. Chansu notices her strange behavior and asks her if she is feeling unwell at all. She quickly says that she is absolutely fine. He starts to wonder if maybe he accidentally did something wrong already. He says that they will just get going then, but she just wants to be able to pinch Hamtal's fat little fluffy cheeks. They finally get to the massive apple tree, and she is still just completely fawning over cute little Hamtal. She then says that the freshly grown apples smell incredibly good. Chansu agrees, proudly stating that they were grown really well this year. She then stops what she is doing. She takes a proper look up at the towering apple tree, asking him how it got so incredibly big. He offers her one, asking if she would like to try one for herself. She asks him if that is really okay with him. He then casually throws one of the massive apples down to her. She comments that it is not just the gigantic tree. She notes that these apples themselves are completely massive as well. But she also thinks that when most fruits get too big in size, the overall sweetness usually suffers as a result. She muses that it could just be one of those classic cases of something that looks good but ultimately disappoints. She then takes her first curious bite of the huge fruit. She immediately starts to get one of those classic Food War-style ecstatic reactions. She declares that it is not just that the apple is incredibly sweet. She explains that the acidity is balanced perfectly as well. And that with this flavor alone, she is certain she could probably sell just one for over 100,000 gold. She then asks Chansu if each apple was really only priced at 2,000 gold, and he confirms that yes, it was. She tells him that no matter how much she thinks about it, a price that low is just completely absurd. He worries and asks her if maybe he overdid it with the price. He mentions that they were being sold much cheaper at other shops anyway. He asks how much she would actually want for them. She nervously puts her hands up, sputtering out the word, 2. Chansu mistakenly assumes she means 200, and he immediately declares that 200 is still far too low. She clarifies that 20,000 is how much he should get at the very least for each of these incredible apples. He immediately starts to freak out at the new price point. She then says that if he were to supply them to a high-end department store, he could probably get even more than 30,000 gold for each one. He asks in complete shock if he could really get all that just for some apples. She explains that she could have just hid the truth from him about their real value. But it would not be right to try and deceive a potential and very valuable long-term customer. She thinks to herself that she really only has one life to live. She is also still under the dangerous assumption that he is a powerful swordmaster. She tells him that these are not just apples. She insists that this kind of amazing flavor is the very first time she has ever had a fruit like this anywhere in the world. She continues that these apples clearly hold much more value than any other regional specialty item she knows of. And so she says that she will officially price them at about 20,000 gold each just for now. And she explains that with a more formal and written contract, they will then settle the remaining balance owed. She then asks him what he thinks of her generous offer. He confidently takes the pen from her. He starts to look over the fine print of the contract before smiling and finally agreeing to all of her terms. He says, however, that he does want to adjust just one small part of it. She replies that she thinks he might have written this new part wrong. She is surprised because her own share of the percentage just went up significantly. He explains that is because he would like to build a long and prosperous business relationship with her. And he also appreciated that she was so honest with him about the apple's real value right from the start. She starts to realize that he might be a much better person than she had originally thought he was. She sighs and realizes that she had completely judged a book by its scary cover. She then gratefully thanks him for agreeing to sign the revised contract. She says that now she is going to go ahead and hand him over all of the special items he had ordered. Inside the delivery containers are all the seeds, the food supplies, and the new cooking tools. It is everything that he had originally requested, as well as one special item, a familiar egg. It is a special commemorative gift from her company. She tells him it will definitely help with his future farming endeavors. Although, she adds, since he is already currently raising one cute little familiar, he probably does not actually need another one. Chansu asks her what she means by him already raising a familiar. She asks if the little one on his shoulder is not a familiar after all. She explains that it just looked way too friendly to be a simple wild monster. She concludes that she might have just misunderstood the situation. He tells her that it is fine, and that he would like her to explain more about the egg. She explains that the more of his special points he pours into the egg using his blessing skill, the stronger the familiar that ultimately hatches from it will be. But she also warns him that if he overdoes it with the power, the egg itself will just crack and the process will completely fail, so he must be careful with it. And once the egg starts to tremble violently, she highly recommends that he stops immediately. He thinks that he will have to try it out for himself to really get a good feel for how the entire process works. And then, she asks him about the expected harvest schedule for all of the apples they just made a deal on. He tells her that since he will also now be growing a variety of other crops, he expects to be able to harvest around 50 apples each day. She is shocked to learn that he means 50 apples a day, daily. They then worked out all of the complex logistics for their deal. They decided on the visit dates for pickups, and sorted out pretty much every other little detail that they would need for their new business deal to be a success. Chansu later thanks his goddess for staying hidden from sight until their meeting was over. He tells her it was definitely the right call to hide her from view right before his big monster hunt. He exclaims that he cannot believe that just selling some apples could possibly make his life this happy, and he knows that it is all thanks to her amazing divine power. He looks over at the sleeping goddess. He thinks to himself that in order to properly bless the new familiar's egg, he will probably need to go out and gather even more points for it. And so he decides he needs to increase his overall number of regular monster hunting customers, since his current daily supply of undying ogres now feels like it is a little bit too one-sided and predictable. He notes that overall, things are definitely going very smoothly for him now though. He knows he even has some much-needed breathing room to work with. And he knows that, of course, there were definitely going to be much bigger and more dangerous challenges ahead for him in his journey. But he says to himself that he is not at all afraid of what is to come. And if anything, he is actually greatly looking forward to facing whatever this world throws at him next. Now, back at the office, we then hear Haesejin's coworker asking her if the client was an apostle, or maybe even just a normal believer of some other faction. He also speculates that the mystery client might have even been a powerful person who uses the art of alchemy. Haesejin confirms to her coworkers that he is, in fact, Korean. She also states that he could also belong to one of the violent factions like the war or violence factions, or that he could possibly even be completely unaffiliated with any group at all. The man says that since all of the powerful apostles are known to be Korean anyways, that part of his story is not at all strange. But he still thinks that the idea of someone that powerful actually growing simple foods and being so combat-oriented at the same time just does not make any logical sense to him. Haesejin then adds that he had cut down all those undying ogres with just a single rusty scythe. She also mentions that he had only ever targeted their heads, and that it was over 100 of them in just one battle. Her stunned coworker theorizes that maybe this mysterious client could be aiming to become a legendary swordmaster through some kind of extreme handicap training, just like the famous Rohan once did. And he also decides that it would be better for them to now focus on keeping his very existence hidden, rather than just assigning a few simple guards to his territory. Haesejin says that she completely agrees with him. And her coworker then says that as for all of those incredible apples, he wants to immediately start selling them at the most high-end department stores. He knows that they will all be a guaranteed and massive hit with the wealthy customers. Haesejin has to physically stop him from taking another delicious bite from the samples. Her coworker asks what she is doing and tells her to move her hands right away. But she tells him in no uncertain terms that he has already eaten all of the delicious apples that she had brought back with her to the office. He indignantly reminds her that he is her senior at the company, and so he should get more. But she rightfully retorts that she is the one who had to go out and bring them all back here in the first place, though. Back in Chance's territory later that same night, he sits and wonders just what kind of familiar will ultimately come out from his brand new egg. He sincerely hopes that it is at least a cute one, or if not cute, at least a very capable one. But of course, he admits to himself that having both of those qualities at once would be the absolute best. Suddenly, the magical egg in his lap begins to violently crack open. The egg cracks. A blinding light explodes outwards. Chansu yells for the creature inside to emerge, screaming for an SSS rank familiar. A tiny foot kicks free, and then the whole shell shatters. Something is coming out. From the wreckage of the egg, a tiny, fluffy chick appears. It lets out a small peep. Chansu stares in disbelief. He thinks about the 120,000 points he just spent. He notes that it seems pretty big for a chick. But he realizes that if he raises this, it will just become a normal chicken. His disappointment is massive. He says out loud that he was hoping for a worker. He wonders if he should just raise it to eat it. He decides not to get attached to it. He will just give it a random name. He leans down and introduces himself as O Chansu. He tells the tiny bird that from today, it is now named Ari. Just then the other egg begins to crack. Chansu's face lights up with renewed hope. He exclaims that another one is coming out. He shouts that this time, it has to be a worker for sure. The second egg splits open. Out tumbles a small, pink piglet. It gives a happy oink. Chansu stares at it with a dark expression. He says flatly that its name is Doji. His shoulders slump in total defeat. He asks why he only keeps getting ingredients. He wonders if this entire familiar system is just an elaborate scam. Later that night, the familiars meet with the goddess. Ari speaks, stating that the 10th seat, chicken, greets the goddess of abundance. Doji follows, stating that the 12th seat, pig, also greets the goddess of abundance. The goddess acknowledges them. She tells them it has been a while. She apologizes for not being able to protect them until the very end. Ari chirps that she should not say such things. He says they are only sorry that they were not able to properly assist her. Doji oinks in agreement. He says that they will do their best so that she can finally regain her beautiful true form. The goddess's expression grows serious. She appreciates their sentiment, but she tells them there is something they must be careful of. She warns them to be wary of her apostle. She explains that he does not know that they are his true retainers. She worries that if he thinks they are useless, he might just sell them off. She then adds that perhaps he might even just eat them. The two familiars remember the cold look in Chance's eyes when they first hatched. They begin to sweat nervously. The goddess continues, telling them they must be on their absolute best behavior. This must continue until Chanso finally obtains the communication skill that will allow him to understand them. Doji whimpers, thinking about what the goddess just said. Ari tilts his head, thinking the apostle looked pretty dim-witted. He decides they should just observe him for now. The next day arrives. Chansu is already awake, gripping his sickle. A new swarm of undead monsters waits. He says with a grin that the start of his day is always them. He greets them as his dear customers. He then leaps forward, his sickle flashing as it slices through the air with deadly precision. The undead fall before him. Ari and Doji watch the scene with wide eyes. Ari chirps, wondering what all the commotion is so early in the morning. Doji adds a confused oink. The two familiars pop their eyes out in complete shock. They watch Chansu move with terrifying ease, decapitating the monsters one after another. Ari trembles, asking what that terrifying skill is. Doji just gulps nervously. Chansu continues his fluid dance of death. Ari sweats and whispers to Doji, remembering that the apostle was licking his lips when he first looked at them. Doji stammers, remembering it too. They both imagine Chansu staring at them as if they were a meal. They are terrified that he might really eat them. Chansu glances at his system window. His Bulsagui hunt is now at 202. He wipes the sweat from his brow, announcing that he finally got them all. Hearing a rustle, Chansu looks over, surprised. He asks when they got here. Ari and Doji are there, acting incredibly helpful. Chansu takes the towel they offer and accepts their good morning wishes. He says it is very thoughtful of them. Later, he offers them all some sliced apples. Doji squeals and immediately starts eating. Chansu mutters to himself. He heard that grape-fed pork was trendy. He wonders if feeding an animal fruit makes its meat taste better. Ari panics at his words. He tries to stop Doji from eating, telling him he is going to become an apple-flavored grilled pork belly. Chansu then offers an apple to Ari, who sniffs it and widens his eyes. Ari realizes that Chansu put at least 500 points worth of blessings into this single apple slice. He thinks that this amount is a normal apostle's entire daily income. He is shocked, but shakes his head and stands firm. He thinks to himself that he is different from the pig and he will never become fried chicken. Chansu sees Ari hesitating. He asks if apples are not to his taste. He then pulls out a small bag of grains and asks if he will eat those instead. Ari begins pecking at the grains. Chansu chuckles, observing that unlike Doji, Ari is a small eater. Soon, it is time for Chansu's 3-minute farming class. He instructs Doji to dig the ground, and for Ari to plant the black beans. He tells them to cover the ground and give it water. He then uses his blessing of abundance skill with a click. He smiles, declaring that it is easy and that their goddess is the best. Chansu holds up a new harvest. He says it must be offered to the goddess first. She leans forward and absorbs the crops with surprising speed, a consumption method Chansu can never get used to. He then offers some to Doji, who happily eats. Chansu watches, noting that Doji has always been a big eater, but then he sees Ari. The small chick is now eating almost as much as Doji. Chansu raises an eyebrow, questioning if Ari was really a small eater. Before long, both familiars are completely full. Ari mutters that he was defeated by his appetite and that he is so screwed now. Chansu smiles warmly, saying it is nice to see them eating so well, and he should hurry to grow other crops for them. Then he remembers something. He says he told the trading company that he would start selling the apples today. He wonders out loud if they are selling well. The scene shifts to a department store. A man named Ryu has finished organizing the display for the Emperor Apple. A small crowd has gathered, but no one is buying. Ryu knows the flashy packaging and the 200,000 gold price tag is making people hesitant. He wishes he could run a taste-testing corner, knowing people's minds would change after just one bite. Suddenly, a voice calls out, "Thank you, valued customer." A huge commotion erupts around the apple display. Ryu rushes over, asking what is going on. An employee points and exclaims that the Emperor apples are completely sold out. Ryu is in disbelief. He says there were some left just a moment ago. The seller explains that someone tasted one, and then immediately bought all of them. He adds that the payment signature says Rohan. The crowd murmurs as a tall, famous-looking figure leaves with a huge sack over his back. Someone asks if that is Rohan. Ryu's voice cracks as he shouts the name. Rohan? If it is Rohan, he thinks, the pioneer of the handicap training method. The crowd erupts, recognizing the unrivaled swordmaster. Ryu realizes this is a huge scoop. For someone so legendary to buy all of their apples is massive news. Outside, Rohan is already enjoying one. He takes a bite and smiles. It's delicious. At the department store, Ryu is stunned. He thinks that for that kind of person to buy up all of their apples is truly breaking news. He thought the story would make headlines, but this is beyond anything he imagined. An online article pops up with the title, "The Unyielding Symbol: What Rohan the Sword Master Ate to Become Who He Is." Netizens comment that the food he ate during his training is finally on the market. Ryu grabs his head in frustration and shouts about what kind of absurd article this is supposed to be. He gets a call and immediately starts yelling. He asks if they are really asking if eating apples will make you a sword master. He shouts that, as if that would ever be true, it has absolutely nothing to do with them. His phone rings again with another call. He answers and identifies himself as Ryu Wuhuan from Sunhuan Trading. He is then shocked by the voice on the other end, who wants to pre-order 100 boxes out of the blue. He screams into the phone that it is not that simple. Back on the farm, a full week has now passed since Chansa came to this world. He thinks that he is living a pretty abundant life here. After everyone has eaten their meal, he says he will get ready too. He prepares potatoes and sweet potatoes, exclaiming that these are just as tasty as the apples. As he cooks, Doji waddles up to him, oinking excitedly. Chansa looks down and says he is not making this for Doji, especially since Doji just ate his meal a moment ago. The piglet makes an irresistibly cute face, and Chansa sighs in defeat. He says fine, and offers it a small piece to eat. Just then, Heisijin arrives and calls out to him. Chansu turns and smiles, acknowledging that she is here. She tells Mr. O Chansu that he has managed to hatch all of his familiars, thinking to herself about how the cuteness has tripled. The familiars quickly scramble to hide the goddess, thinking they must protect her at all costs from an outsider. Chansa says of course and asks what brings her here today. She shows him her tablet and says she has some good news for him. She tells him not to be surprised. All of the apples sold out at 200,000 gold each, for 2 days in a row. Chansa shouts in disbelief. 200,000 gold per apple, and 2 days in a row at that price. Heisijin confirms that it is unbelievable and that everyone now wants them. He looks at his system, which shows regular apples only cost 990 gold. He wonders if there are just a lot of rich people here. He quickly calculates that his 30% cut of the profits means he earns 60,000 gold per apple. Selling 50 a day will get him 3 million gold daily, which means an annual profit of over 1 billion. He loses himself in a daydream of becoming a billionaire. He thinks if that really happens, maybe he will even find a clue about his missing parents. He asks Heisijin if the department store fees are pretty high. She replies that since he provided a hit product, she will try to negotiate them down for him. He then says he does not want to ruin the mood, but he has to ask how long she thinks the hype over the Emperor apples will last. He knows they are popular now, but expecting them to keep selling at that high price forever is unrealistic. Heisijin agrees that she understands his concern. She explains that even if they sell just 100 a day to a target audience of 1 million, that is still 27 years of sales. She adds that they will gain regular customers over that time too. He thinks this seems like an overestimation. She clarifies that it would be if they were thinking in Earth terms. She tells him the market here is comparable to China at its peak, so there is no need to worry. She then grabs his hand and asks him if he has thought about increasing his apple production. He replies that he did grow other crops too, and asks if she wants to maybe try those first. She agrees that they are just as tasty as the apples, and her excitement makes her grab his hands too tightly. He presents her with the first dish, telling her that they will start with boiled potatoes. She thanks him for the meal and takes a bite, her face immediately lighting up. She exclaims that they are sweet. She notes that adding a pinch of salt creates a perfect sweet-salty combo. She loves that the skin has a nutty aroma and that the texture is amazingly soft. Chansa thinks that he is glad she likes them. He tells her that he also prepared pancakes and fries. She tastes the fries and is blown away. She declares that they taste like something a fancy restaurant would serve. She says these potato fries could be a main dish, not just a side. He is glad it suits her taste. To finish, he tells her he made something Doji goes crazy for, roasted sweet potatoes. As she enjoys her meal, Doji begins begging for some too. Chansa tells everyone they will all eat together. He also asks Ari why he is so skinny and then accuses Doji of stealing Ari's food again. As they eat, Haesejin scoops up Hamtal, exclaiming about how cute and fluffy he is. Chansa then asks what she thinks about him selling these familiars too. She finishes the meal and thanks him, but asks if it is possible to grow these other crops while also increasing apple production. He replies that it would be difficult unless they get more points, as he cannot use all of his points just on farming. She then says in that case, while she appreciates the effort, she must ask him to focus solely on the apples. She explains that all the apostles are Korean, and the culture here is heavily influenced by that. While the food is amazing, it is hard to charge a premium price for simple crops alone. Even with demand, they will not be as profitable as apples. She bows deeply, begging him to consider her situation and the high department store fees. Chansa thinks that he even served her his precious crops after all that effort. He wonders if he pushed her too hard in their negotiations. He breaks the silence and asks if 100 a day would be enough. She is stunned and asks if he really means it. Chansa confirms that he will supply 100 apples per day. He thinks to himself that there is no need to insist on the hard route. She enjoyed the food, so the attempt was worth it. She beams, thanking Mr. O-Chance. The next day, Chansa heads out to hunt with his sickle. Ari and Doji follow right behind him. Doji quietly asks Ari if it is okay to follow him every time, and wonders what they can even do to help. Ari scolds him, saying it is nonsense. Ari chirps that if they do not keep watch, then who will, since they cannot leave it to that clueless hamster. Chansu looks behind him, wondering why they keep following him everywhere. He thinks maybe they are actually combat types. He tells himself there is no way actual familiars would be totally useless and just eat. Suddenly, he sees his familiars running in a panic as an immortal ghost attacks them. Chansa hates himself for having any expectations. He thinks it is a good thing that immortal ghosts are so slow. He shouts for Doji to move, but sees the distance is too far. He sprints forward, yelling for the monster to stay away from Doji, but the undead lunges. He realizes his scythe is too short. Then, the creature is suddenly decapitated. Chansa stops, confused. He questions if his skill range just increased. He sees his scythe's angle and position, and realizes the skill was upgraded, affecting its range and even its speed. A system window activates. Mass decapitation is now active, and the range of the skill has increased. He says the name out loud, wondering what kind of name that is. He sees more regulars and thinks that if the range has increased, he can handle even more of them now. His sickle moves like a blur, wiping out waves of monsters. Ari and Doji rush back to the goddess in a complete panic. They tell her there is a big problem. They exclaim that the apostles started slicing off many heads at once. The goddess and the familiars are in a state of panic. Ari chirps that while it is good that Chansa has gotten stronger, it would be better to prioritize the communication skill. The goddess tells him to calm down, and then firmly states that she never granted Chansu such a skill. Ari is now so scared that he cannot even eat properly anymore. Doji oinks that Chansa called the skill mass decapitation, and asks if she granted that skill too. The goddess's eyes widen as she says, "Mass what?" She imagines Chansu with a crazed, terrifying look on his face. She thinks about what even is that, and how scary it is. She thinks that she has never heard of such a skill. Doji asks if he is even a human. He suggests that maybe Chansu is actually a grim reaper from hell. The goddess thinks this could be true. Just then, the hamster interrupts. It says that it thinks it knows what is going on. Doji says that it was the goddess who bestowed the skill. Ari immediately calls him an idiot and tells him to just sit still for once. He then asks Hamtal what exactly happened. Hamtal explains that it seems the apostle's skill has simply evolved. It reminds them that the decapitation skill is just a modified version of the harvesting skill. It asks them if they remember how an evolved harvesting skill allowed for wide-range harvesting. Just like that, it explains, his decapitation skill has evolved into mass decapitation. Ari chirps that he thought that was something only first-year apostles could do. Hamtal agrees, and says that is why this guy is so scary. And also, it is a thankful thing. It is true his monstrous growth rate is frightening, but thanks to that, they are even able to have this conversation right now. The goddess reassures them that once the apostle returns, she will bestow the communication skill, so they should not worry so much. Ari apologizes for showing a shameful side of himself. Just then, Chansa returns. The goddess thinks that she does not know what to say first, but she wants to talk to the apostle as soon as possible. She decides she should first introduce the creatures as her familiars. As she is thinking this, a system window appears. It announces that the goddess of abundance bestows a new skill upon the apostle. She thinks to herself that defining an apostle's path is a violation of the world's rules, and that he must decide for himself. The window gives Chansu two choices: promise of abundance or communication. The goddess is certain that if it is her apostle, he will choose communication. She plans that once he does, she will first tell him to stay away from danger, and then, before anything else, she will thank him for choosing her. But a system window flashes. Skill selection is complete. It announces that based on his choice, he has obtained the skill, promise of abundance. The goddess stares in complete shock and asks Huh. Chansu looks at the new skill window. He has no idea what promise of abundance even means. He looks at the communication skill and figures it is the one that lets him talk with animals and plants. He immediately has a vision of all his crops and familiars yelling at him. He hears Ari screaming for revenge, and the apple tree complaining about having to grow over 100 fruits a day. The mere thought of this gives him chills. He thinks that this is no good, and that ignorance is bliss. He is definitely not choosing communications. As he makes his selection, his familiars all slump into a gloomy state. He looks at them and wonders why everyone is suddenly so gloomy. He decides to just focus on the new skill for now. He opens his status window, and as expected, there is no description for promise of abundance. He holds up an apple and says he shall offer it to the goddess. When he presents it to her, she turns away, looking upset. He asks goddess? A system window then says that depending on how the skill is used, points will be returned accordingly. Chansu wonders why she is sulking. He knows he gave her the apple even though she did not eat it, so he thinks it was a success. He realizes that he gets points back for keeping promises he makes to himself. He gets a mischievous look on his face. He decides he will pinch Hamtal's cheek. He does, and he gets points again. He decides to try one last time, and says he will rub Doji's belly. He places some apple slices in front of Doji and says he will make them call him. Doji eats the apples happily, but Chansu stares at his points, asking why they are not coming back. He wonders if it is a bug, or if Doji's belly is still not full yet, even after he gave him more than 10 pieces. He sighs and says whatever. Just then, Heisejin comes running up to him. She is back after just one day, and he asks if something is wrong. She tells him there is no time for this, and that he needs to hurry and claim this block and defend it. He asks what she is talking about, and if someone is attacking. She explains that the popularity of the Emperor Apple skyrocketed so much, they had to limit purchases to one per person, but even so, over 5,000 people have already made reservations. Chansu's jaw drops. 5,000 people? She confirms they said they do not care when it arrives, just to send it as soon as it is ready. With that kind of demand, raiders will definitely start targeting the apples and the block itself. And since this area is outside the authority zone, there is no protection against such crimes. She adds that if only he had some backing, everything would change. Chansu thinks that his only backing is the goddess. He knows that if he loses, it is not just him. It will be the end for the goddess and the entire abundance faction. He knows that at the very least, he needs to claim the block and install a secure gate. He then decides to capture the surrounding blocks and set up a disguised base. That will also put him closer to Heisejin. He tells her that is a great idea. Once they occupy the block and build a door, they will not have to deal with the movement restrictions. He asks her why the reservations exploded like this, because it is not normal at all. She asks if he did not know. The entire block is going crazy over the effects of the Emperor Apple. He asks what effects. She lists off all the rumors. That it increases skill proficiency, cures diseases, clears skin, whitens teeth, and even boosts memory. Chansu shouts, "Are you kidding me?" He says they might as well just call it a cure-all. She asks him so it is not true then. She was kind of hoping it was. Chansu says of course it is not true. He tells her to first hurry up and claim the block. But she presses him, asking if it is really not true. Really? He shouts that it obviously is not. It is just an apple. Meanwhile, in a hospital room, a man tells Rohan that he has finally shown up. This is Hong Yunsu, alchemy's grand alchemist. Rohan presents a box of apples and says it is a get-well-soon gift. He mentions he heard he is being discharged today. Yunsu asks if this is that apple, the one Rohan discovered and bought tons of. Word has already spread. Rohan says it is nonsense. Yunsu takes a bite and his eyes go wide. He says this is crazy, that the flavor and nutrition are maxed out. He asks if all the apples are this good and how much the taste varies. Rohan just mutters, asking if he looks like some kind of god of cuisine. Yunsu is amazed that even Rohan's senses cannot tell the difference, and wonders how they were grown. He tells Rohan off for eating the gift he brought for him. Rohan tells him to hurry up and eat some too. Yunsu says it is not like he does not have money or time. He will just buy more himself. He calls the store, but they tell him they are currently overloaded with reservations. He tells them to just sell him what they have left. He will pay double, no, triple. He says that he has got the money and the time. Rohan calls him petty. Outside, a reporter takes their picture, and the next day's news reads, Grand Alchemist Hong Yunsu discharged right after eating Emperor Apple. Is the Emperor Apple really a cure-all? Ryu sees the headline and explodes, yelling that he told everyone it is not a miracle cure. Chansu addresses his goddess. He states that he thinks they will have to take over the surrounding blocks, and he will head out starting tonight. The goddess reacts in horror as Chansu turns to his familiars. He instructs Doji and Ari that they need to protect the goddess. The goddess is distraught, thinking he is leaving just because he got a new skill, one that is not even a combat skill. She rushes towards him, grabbing at his leg and silently begging him not to go because it is dangerous. Chansu looks down, asking, Goddess? His eyes widen. He thinks to himself, has the time finally come? His mind fills with thoughts of food, carbohydrates and plant-based protein. He then decides that the time has come for protein. He thinks that he did not have the guts to eat meat in front of them before, but beef should be okay. He tells the familiars to please understand, explaining that it is because the goddess wants it. He rushes to his storage and pulls out a package of beef he had ordered. He exclaims that this is real meat, which he has only ever heard about. On Earth, there was only lab-grown meat, so he had only been able to look at photos. He begins cooking the meat, and the smell alone is on a different level from the cultured meat he was used to. Doji immediately starts begging for some. Chansu tells him no, and that this is for the goddess. Ari mutters that the pig just ate and is already doing this again. He then turns to the goddess for confirmation, and is shocked to see her angry expression. Ari wonders if she was still hungry. He then tells the apostle that he thinks the goddess is hungry and asks him to check. Chansu tells the goddess it is almost ready. He presents a piece to her, telling her to be careful because it is hot. The goddess angrily slaps the meat away, thinking he is still determined to go. Chansu wonders if the meat has gone bad. He just bought it recently. He tries it himself and says that it is good. But he thinks that it is good, but something is lacking. It does not have the same shock value as when he first had the apple. He then understands. That must be why the goddess did not eat it either, she just did not like the taste. The goddess continues to shake and tremble, silently pleading for her apostle not to go. Chansu smiles gently and tells her that he will find her some delicious meat. He asks her to just hold on a little longer. Later that night, as the familiars are sleeping, the goddess sits awake and worried. Chansu makes his way to the edge of his block. From far away, the scenery looked continuous, but up close, it was actually a shimmering space. A system window asks if he would like to move to the next block. He agrees, telling it to hurry. As it loads, a tip appears telling him that movement tickets are restored at midnight every day. He crosses the border into a completely different environment. It is a dense jungle. Just as he is looking around, his lantern turns off, terrifying him. A strange noise makes him turn around. He sees a massive swarm of insectoid monsters flying towards him. He shouts, "What are these bugs?" and starts running away. They are too small for his scythe, and he realizes he can't even chop their necks. He decides he has to head back. Just as he reaches the border, immortal ghosts begin to appear. He is surprised to see them here all of a sudden. He wonders if they came to protect him. The ghosts communicate that they are the only ones allowed to defeat him, and so for just this once, they will fight by his side. Chansu shouts as if the bugs start disappearing as the immortal ghosts charge in to fight them. Chansu realizes this is his chance to retreat. He sprints back across the border and collapses on the other side. He thinks that was a really close one. A new tip appears, informing him that he has earned bonus points from defeating evolved monsters. He wonders if he gets the points from the monsters that the immortal ghosts defeated as well. He grins, realizing this is a goldmine of points, and it changes everything. He sees his customers bulking up on the other side of the barrier. He thinks that seriously, they are such lovable ones. He can't say no to bonuses. Back at the trading company office, Heisejin is complaining to her senior, Ryu. She says she is losing her mind from all the complaint calls, and that the rumors about the Emperor Apple have gone way too far. Ryu says that they had let it slide until now since it was good marketing, but he agrees they cannot let it spiral any further. He declares that from now on, any mention of the Emperor Apple is strictly forbidden. No response to inquiries or interviews, they must greet all questions with silence and indifference. She asks if that is okay, and he says of course. He tells her that even if a knife is held to her throat, she is not to say a single word. He says these people need to be taught a lesson. She asks him what if a real knife actually comes to his throat. He asks if she thinks this is the time for jokes, calling it nonsense. A sword is then held to his neck. He asks if there is someone behind him. A man says he is sorry if he startled him, and that it was just a light greeting. Ryu realizes who it is. Swordmaster Rohan. Ryu asks what brings him here. Rohan says he went to his boss first, but he was tight-lipped. He hopes that Ryu will be more forthcoming. He then asks him a single question: where is the grower of the Emperor Apple now? Terrified, Ryu immediately shoves his junior, Heisijin, forward, telling her to go ahead and explain. She is shocked and furious, shouting at her senior for hiding behind her. Ryu frantically tells her that he never imagined Rohan would bring a real sword to a business meeting. Heisijin's disappointment is immense. She now understands the old saying that there is not a single trustworthy senior in the world. Summoning every bit of her courage, she stands her ground. She tells the sword master that if he met with their boss, then he already knows their policy. The Sunhuan company never sells out its clients' information. At her firm refusal, Rohan's expression darkens. He sighs, remarking that he had hoped for an easy way, but he sees now it cannot be helped. He raises his massive sword high above his head, and both Ryu and Heisijin nearly faint from pure, unadulterated fear. Ryu is certain that he is about to die and desperately begs for his life. But instead of swinging the blade, Rohan plunges the sword's point directly into the floor. The impact shatters the expensive tiles around it. Rohan then announces that he does not need them. He will find the farmer using his own instinct. With that, he pulls his sword free and turns to leave, leaving the two employees completely stunned. Heisijin has no idea what is happening and asks Ryu what he meant by instinct. Ryu explains that a sword master's instinct is on a completely different level from a regular person's. He tells her that he has heard Rohan has solved many impossible problems in the past using his instinct alone. Heisijin is blown away by this information, left to wonder if a human can even do that. 2 days later, Chansu stands at the edge of his territory, waiting. Heisijin had given him a heads up that Rohan would be visiting, and he wonders why the man has not shown up yet. He thought sword masters had unrestricted travel rights. He knows even deliveries only take 2 days to arrive here. Just then, a system notification announces that someone has entered the block. Chansu knows it has to be Rohan. He waits by the main gate, but to his surprise, no one comes through. He assumes it must be a system glitch, since all visitors are supposed to use the gate. He checks the system again and realizes it is not a glitch. He decides to check the surroundings just in case, and is immediately hit with a huge surprise. Chansu watches in total disbelief as Rohan tears down a section of the shimmering block barrier using nothing but his sword. The sheer sight of this impossible feat sends chills down his spine. Rohan walks up to him and asks if he is the apple cultivator. Chansu, trying to hide his nervousness, welcomes the sword master as best as he can. Rohan gets straight to the point, stating that he is here to buy apples. Chansu asks how many he plans to buy. Rohan says he would like 100 apples, but if Chansu can provide 200 he would not mind. This shocks Chansu, who screams that his request is practically impossible. He explains that his absolute limit is 50 apples. Without arguing, Rohan agrees that 50 apples is fine. Chansu then asks what price he is willing to offer. Rohan states 200,000 gold for each one. This price shocks Chansu. He tells Rohan that they do not offer packaging like the stores, but Rohan does not care. Chansu asks if he is aware he is quoting the full department store pricing, and Rohan assures him that he is. The amount of money is so crazy that Chansu is already thinking of ways he can sell him more. He then takes Rohan to the apple tree. The sword master is already salivating at the thought of the delicious apples. Chansu walks up to the tree and activates his blessing of abundant skill. Dozens of perfect apples instantly appear on the branches. Chansu pulls out his sickle, telling Rohan to give him a moment while he harvests them. However, Rohan says there is no need. He brings out his own massive sword and, in a single flash of movement, cuts down all the apples in an instant, leaving Chansu in a state of horror. He refuses to believe his eyes, thinking it must have been some kind of bug in the system. After they conclude their deal, Rohan sends the agreed-upon money and assures him he will visit again next time. Just as Rohan is about to leave, Chansu stops him. He realizes that Rohan could be a huge help to him with his plans to conquer the new block. Chansu asks him if he is interested in other crops he has grown, confident that Rohan will love them. He mentions his tasty potatoes, but before he can even finish, Rohan says he is not interested. He pushes further, mentioning sweet potatoes and beans, but Rohan's answer remains the same. After denying all of his offers, Rohan says he is going to leave. Realizing how integral Rohan is to his plans, Chansu makes a desperate final offer. He yells that he will give him more apples than what they had agreed upon. Chansu can sense that even if he appears strange and wild, Rohan is not a bad person. Chansu then explains his situation. He tells Rohan that to continue with a steady supply of apples, he needs to take over another block. He directly asks for Rohan's help, offering apples in return as payment. Chansu is not sure if his plan will work, but Rohan walks up to him and tells him he has agreed to the offer. Without wasting any time, Rohan immediately heads for the new block, with Chansu running behind him just trying to keep up. Chansu is surprised Rohan is leaving immediately and starts to wonder just how strong the sword master really is. When they arrive, Chansu notices the ground is wet with a strange liquid, very different from his own block. He is staring down at his dirty shoes when a monster appears right behind him. Before it can make a meal out of him, Rohan drags him to safety, telling him to stay back because it is dangerous. Chansu thinks that Rohan is the real dangerous one here. He is surprised that he almost got eaten by a monster that was disguised as a plant. Chansu tells Rohan that he does not need to do too much, since Chansu will be the one managing this block in the end. He wants to get rid of the monsters by himself. He activates his decapitation skill and begins cutting down the plant monsters as if they are nothing. After he is done, he activates his Blessing of Abundance skill. From a distance, Haesejin calls out Chansu's name. Seeing him with a bright smile, her own expression turns to shock when she sees he is with Rohan, and they are both working on a strange plant. He wonders what the hell is this weird sight? He steps out of the foliage and asks Chansu what on earth has happened here. Haesejin whips around, startled. She sees Chansu talking with Rohan, and Chansu tells her that he is planning on taking over all the surrounding blocks. He says he thought he would come greet her and also do some conquering while he was at it. Haesejin shouts that is not it at all. She frantically whispers to him, asking why he is with that guy, Rohan. Chansu begins to explain to her exactly what has happened. The narrative then rewinds. After clearing the land of the monstrous plant creatures, Rohan comments that Chansu's task is finally all done now. Rohan then asks him how long he has been waiting. He then states that he wants to taste the apples grown here in this new territory. Chansu nervously explains to Rohan that there is no land here to plant any trees, as it is all just muddy puddles everywhere. The moment Rohan hears this, he unsheathes his massive sword. With a single powerful swing, he effortlessly clears a huge portion of the swampy land, carving out a perfect space where Chansu can now plant his seeds. Chansu is gripped with shock as he witnesses this incredible feat of strength. Without wasting a single second, he plants a new seed in the freshly cleared earth. He then immediately casts his Blessing of Abundance skill on it. As Chansu explains this to Haesejin, an enormous and fully grown apple tree, bearing ripe fruit, now stands where there was once only mud. Haesejin is absolutely amazed. She notes that the apples here smell kind of weird. Chansu agrees with her observation. He explains that it must be because of the unique environment of this block. Apparently, the apples grown here now have double the flavor and aroma. He also adds that depending on the amount of points he infuses, the actual taste changes as well, a process he is still experimenting with. He then plucks one of the strange new apples and offers it to Haesejin, asking if she would like to try one. But the girl quickly refuses, saying she will pass on it for now. Haesejin then spots the corpses of the plant monsters that are still lying on the ground. She identifies them as ostrich tails, much to Chansu's surprise. He says this is the first time he has ever heard of that name. Haesejin explains that the monster has habits that are very similar to an ostrich, and it is said to only be active at night, which makes it extremely hard to catch. Haesejin checks out the defeated monster, and she confesses that its condition looks absolutely great. She carefully takes a sample of its fluid into a test tube. She then asks Chansu if he was the one who hunted all of these ostrich tails by himself. Chansu proudly replies that it was all him, and assures her that Rohan was not involved in their defeat at all. He asks Haesejin if there is a problem with that. Haesejin's entire demeanor suddenly changes. She grabs him, a desperate look in her eyes as she asks him if he is willing to sell them. She reveals that the ostrich tails are incredibly valuable and will sell for a very high price. Scared by this intense, zombie-like lady, Chansu immediately agrees that he is going to sell them. Haesejin throws her hands up into the air, celebrating like she has just won the lottery. She then stares at Chansu as if he is the most handsome man on the planet. Haesejin simply cannot wrap her head around the fact that Chansu is so incredibly skilled in both combat and farming. And in addition to his amazing personal skills, he even has a legendary sword master working by his side. Hujin knows that meeting Chansu is truly a once-in-a-lifetime blessing for her. She is already dreaming about the many valuable and exotic products she might still get the opportunity to sell. Her daydream is cut short when Chansu calls her name. Haesejin is momentarily annoyed that he ruined her happy thoughts, but she asks him if he wants anything from her. Chansu reminds her that he had ordered some items from the company. Haesejin looks into her bag and starts bringing out all of the things that Chansu had requested, like the pest control plant seeds. There is also a complete building construction kit included in his order. In almost no time at all, Chansu has used the kit to construct a beautiful and portable home designed for adventurers. He has also planted all of the new pest-repelling seeds around the entire area. This leaves Jean in a state of complete shock. She did not know that Chansu also possessed the amazing ability to instantly grow plants in such a short amount of time. Jean continues to wonder to herself, just what kind of unbelievable person is Chansu really? Soon afterward, Chansu officially purchases ownership of the new block. The goddess and all her retainers rejoice like happy little babies at this news. Chansu is also extremely happy because he has finally become a true landowner. A single block usually consists of 100 individual ownership units, and once all of them have been acquired, a faction gains complete possession of that territory. Chansu is exceptionally happy about this, because back on the ruined Earth, he could barely even afford to acquire a single small room for himself. In addition to this great achievement, purchasing the entire land also comes with a whole bunch of brand new features for him. And the most important one among them is the block's trait assignment feature. Chansu gets a helpful new tip from the system. It tells him that the traits that are assignable to a new block will depend entirely on the apostle's chosen god, or on the block's own unique nature. Chansu is very happy to hear this news, because this new feature fits perfectly with his goddess's specific divine nature. The system then asks him to choose a powerful new trait to assign to his block. His available options are growth and death. Since the growth option sounds so much better than the death one, he immediately thinks of choosing growth. In addition, he believes that this will also greatly help with his goddess's own personal growth too. Chansu officially applies the new growth trait to his block, but things do not look entirely different from how they did just a few moments before. Chansu concludes that there is no notable difference yet simply because it is still only at stage 1. He then checks out the status window. He sees that the new growth trait he has just applied will affect basically everything that happens within this block. Chansu is smiling happily until he suddenly realizes there is a specific option listed for spawned monster growth. Chansu almost faints from the sudden fear that begins to creep through his body as he fully processes this new information. This basically means that this new trait has its good and its bad attributes. One of the very bad attributes is that his recurring undead monsters have now partaken in this growth as well. However, even though they have definitely grown much stronger, Chansu is relieved that they are still very much manageable for him. As usual, Chansu heads out to take on the daily swarm of monsters, and he easily takes them all down, just as he always does. He is actually glad about this new development. He knows that the undead monsters growing even stronger also means a greater amount of points for him. Suddenly, the sword master Rohan appears silently right behind him, completely shocking him, because Chansu did not even sense his presence at all. He figures out that Rohan must have come to see him again because his huge supply of apples has already finished. Rohan questions what Chansu means by already, but Chansu just reminds him that it has not even been a full week since he got his last batch of apples. Chansu jokes to himself that Rohan is just going to die from eating far too many apples one day. He then asks the sword master how many new apples he needs this time. Rohan replies that he wants 120, but if he can possibly get even more, he certainly will not mind. Chansu then explains to Rohan that he will have to slightly adjust the flavor of these new apples, because of the recent change in his territory's environment. He also tells Rohan that he will be able to taste one for free as a sample. As he approaches the great tree, he is shocked to find his goddess and all her retainers gathered underneath it, just playing around. The entire group almost sinks right into the ground with fear when they finally spot the dangerous-looking Rohan approaching them. Suddenly, Rohan whips out his massive sword and swings it. Chansa believes for a horrifying moment that Rohan is aiming for the innocent group. He immediately dives in front of them to protect them with his own body. But in the end, he realizes Rohan was just aiming for the apples hanging on the branches above. Chansa now believes that Rohan has not even sensed the presence of the real goddess, since he had simply called the little creatures familiars. Just then, Rohan states that he can clearly sense the new growth trait on this entire block of land. Because of this, he would now like to stay here and train. He assures Chansu, however, that he is going to pay for his stay. Chansa becomes immediately interested as soon as he hears that Rohan is actually willing to pay for his time here. He asks him just how much he is planning on offering. Rohan just smiles as he tells Chansu the absolutely massive amount of money he is ready to throw his way. This unbelievable number sends Chansu into a complete state of pure ecstasy. He immediately and eagerly shakes Rohan's hand, welcoming him as his newest and most esteemed customer. Rohan asks Chansu if the deal is possible, and Chansu enthusiastically replies yes. But he still has some reservations about training as a sword master. He asks if the ground and sky will not suddenly split in half while he trains, and Rohan bluntly says no. Chansa presses further, asking if things will not just explode and fly around. Rohan calmly tells him of course not. Chansu then explains his own limitations. He says he cannot hand over any of the monsters he hunts. He also adds that it is not like he has a ton of points left over to spare either. Rohan states that he does not need any of them. He simply asks for some space in the corner of the block to train. Chansu is surprised. He asks if that is really all the sword master needs, and Rohan confirms that it is. Chansu agrees that it is fine, but then he tells Rohan that there is actually something else he wants from him, other than money. Chansu asks Rohan if he will be his guard. He explains that the very essence of this world is territorial conquest, and you never know when disputes will suddenly turn serious. He believes that if Rohan, one of the world's strongest fighters, protects him, then there could be nothing more reassuring. He knows the payment he is offering is quite large, so it feels like a bit of a waste, but he is determined. He has to become a returner, and this is a necessary step. Rohan says that he will consider Chansu's offer if he can enhance the block's skill growth effect for him. Chansu is ecstatic to hear this. He assures Rohan that he will enhance the growth effect by 50,000 points every single day. In addition, he promises to provide 10 fresh apples for him daily. Rohan wants to clarify if the apples can be purchased separately, and Chansu says of course. The familiars watch this exchange in silent terror. They think that the man is now living with that dangerous person. On the other hand, Chansa believes his goddess will surely be pleased, now that a sword master is protecting them. But he sees their gloomy expressions and wonders if they are all just shy. He tells Rohan that these are his familiars and encourages them to go and greet him. But the moment he tries to introduce them, the little creatures all turn and run away in fear. Chansu is a bit embarrassed, but he just concludes that they must be really shy around new people. Rohan then states that Chansu has his first request. The two of them inspect the newly acquired carnivorous plant block. Chansa comments that Rohan is absorbed in eating his apples again. Chansa plans to purchase the remaining ownership of this block so it will become land under his prosperity faction. He walks towards a patch of beautiful flowers and points them out to Rohan. Rohan asks if there is something there, and Chansu explains what he has found. They see a small, black cat. Chansu is surprised, as he has never seen any other animals around here besides Hamtal. He figures it must be a monster, just like his hamster. He thinks that it does not seem very dangerous, though. The cat is purring as it rubs against the plants. Chansa comments on how it seems tamer and cuter than he expected. Before Rohan can stop him, Chansu walks up to the cat to pet it. As soon as he touches it, the cat leaps away with a terrified hiss, its fur standing on end. A system window then informs Chansu that the Apostle of Negation has just declared war on his block. Chansu is shocked that they declared war on him just because he patted it a little. With tears in his eyes, he asks Rohan if this cat could be the Apostle of Negation. He worries that it must hate him that much. But Rohan just dismisses his question, asking what kind of nonsense he is talking about. Chansu concludes that the Apostle must have gotten mad because he was touched without permission. He wonders why he now has to fight this cat for his very life. Rohan tells him that it is not that one. He explains that since war was declared, the Apostles of Negation will soon appear through the block's border, and that they will be human. Chansu is shocked to hear that he will be fighting actual humans. He knew he did not hesitate when killing monsters, but people are a different story. Rohan tells him that he can kill the members of the Negation faction. He explains that they simply resurrect back at the temple. Chansa asks if they resurrect, and if it is like a save point or something. Rohan confirms that it is. Chansu is furious. He screams, "Isn't that totally unfair? Some of us mess up just once and it is game over." He complains that they just get to act recklessly because they can always come back. He grits his teeth and says, "Fine then, let's see how that goes." He then asks Rohan if he can help him in the battle too, and Rohan agrees, if needed. With that settled, Chansa tells him to hurry. A large blue portal opens up in their block, and out steps an army of skeleton warriors. Leading them are a group of human apostles. One of them holds a megaphone and makes a loud announcement, calling for the cultivator of the Emperor Apples to show himself. At the alchemy headquarters, Heisijin is analyzing the ostrich tail sap she acquired. She is still thinking about how amazing Chansu is. She now believes he is so strong because he is using an artifact, a divine item created for those close to a god that allows its user to borrow that god's power. She thinks this through, but decides it cannot be an artifact, since they are hard to use unless they match the god's nature. As she wonders what could happen next, her colleague, Hong Yunsu, rushes into the room. He walks straight toward her with the very same ostrich tail sap, screaming at her and asking where on earth she got it from. His outburst shocks her, but she knows without a doubt that something crazy is about to happen once again. The Apostles of Negation pour into Chansu's territory from a shimmering blue portal, ready for battle. As they fan out across the land, Chansu and Rohan observe them from the safety of some nearby bushes. Chansu turns to the legendary swordsman and asks him if these invaders are just here for checking things out. Rohan calmly replies that who really knows what they want. Chansu then muses to himself, thinking about what it would be like if the undead actually managed to develop their own form of civilization. He thinks this looks totally manageable. At the edge of the swamp, the apostle in charge of the raiding party demands that the cultivator of the imperial apples finally show himself. The man grumbles, complaining that of all the places to find him, it had to be a block that is completely submerged in water. He yells at Chansu to hurry up and come on out so neither of them has to get tired from a long, drawn-out hunt. As they remain hidden, Chansu is still deeply puzzled by the entire situation. He wonders what this is all about. He asks Rohan why the invaders are acting so incredibly unguarded and nonchalant about their presence here. Chansu questions whether this strange confidence is because they know they can just resurrect themselves even if they happen to die. Rohan simply states that this theory makes sense to him. Even though they are facing an invading force with very little time to prepare, Chansu feels an immense sense of relief because he has the mighty Rohan by his side. Chansu is putting all of his faith in the sword's master. Just then, he decides to step out of his hiding place, his trusty sickle firmly held in his hand. The leader of the enemy apostles stares at Chansu as if he were just some kind of insignificant weakling. He tells Chansu to go and bring him the apples now. Another one of the apostles starts making fun of Chansu, telling him he is completely outnumbered and has no possible chance of victory against them. However, their raiding party begins to get nervous, because they see that Chansu is not doing anything at all, which is a very strange reaction for someone in his position. After a few more moments of tense silence, Chansu finally speaks out. He confidently tells the apostle leader that he is nothing but common trash and is not worth worrying over in the slightest. Chansu knows he is being backed by the powerful sword's master. He is confident that before the Apostles of Negation will have a chance to do anything too crazy, Rohan would have already dealt with all of them. The apostle leader is visibly enraged by Chansu's taunts. He gives Chansu one final chance to surrender all of the Emperor apples. Chansu just scoffs at him, telling the man to just head over to a department store if he really wants to eat some apples so badly. The apostle is completely overtaken with rage because of Chansu's big mouth. He threatens Chansu, asking if he can really handle the severe consequences of his own arrogance. Chansu proceeds to completely break the dude's fragile ego. He tells him to go and ask his own mother all of the trash questions that he is currently asking him. These words hit the enemy leader exactly where Chansu wanted them to. He furiously tells all of his subordinates to kill Chansu on the spot. Meanwhile, back at the alchemy office, Yunsu is desperately pestering Heisijin. He wants to know where she got the incredibly pure sap. Heisijin feels like she wants to tell him the truth, but she explains to him that all of their customers' personal information is strictly confidential. Yunsu then clarifies that he had only asked about its origin because of the standard labor fee for procuring such a rare item. He comes clean, telling her that the ostrich tail sap that Haesejin brought back has a much higher purity percentage than any of the regular ones, which are always extremely hard to keep at a high purity level. Yunsu then brings out a formal contract sheet and hands it directly over to Haesejin, asking her if she can continue supplying them with more of this incredible sap in the future. Jezejin replies that she might have to ask the original cultivator first about that. So Yunsu immediately suggests that they just sign a provisional contract in the meantime. Yunsu is incredibly happy to hear this, and he lets Haesejin know that whoever is truly responsible for this amazing sap will always be more than welcomed in the alchemy department. Back at the intense standoff between Chansu and the invading apostles of negation, the leader notices that Chansu seems pretty calm for someone who is so completely outnumbered. He wonders why his opponent seems so incredibly confident. On the other hand, Chansu is just thinking about how he is going to efficiently take down all of the skeletons that are now approaching him. As the bony warriors begin to rush toward his position, Chansu calmly activates his mass decapitation skill. In a single, fell swoop, he manages to completely wipe out the entire skeleton attack team. The apostle is utterly surprised to see the bones of his once proud subordinates now flying through the air like they are just flimsy feathers. Chansu then piles on the misery for his enemy, telling the apostle leader that his subordinates are actually quite weak. Chansu now stands triumphantly above a pile of broken bones, asking the defeated apostle if he is finally ready to surrender. However, the apostle is not about to lose to some derated, upstart farmer. He quickly brings out a mysterious magical orb, and using its power, he summons a brand new, giant monster called Heracles. The summoned creature looks absolutely terrifying, with a snarling lion's head that seems to be attached to its left shoulder. Instead of running away in pure fear as his enemy had expected, Chansu just finds another opportunity to trash-talk the arrogant apostle. He tells him that he is actually very bad at giving out proper names. The apostle just laughs maniacally at Chansu's foolishness, telling him that he is about to regret his actions. He explains that his Heracles is a super weapon worth lots of money. The apostle then gives a single command to Heracles: go after Chansu. Heracles immediately swings a giant punch at him, but Chansu easily dodges the slow attack. Before the hulking monster can make another move, Chansu swings his sickle at it and sends it flying to the heavens in just a single, clean strike. Heracles' body comes crashing down hard onto the ground, shocking its master, who had just been boasting about how incredibly strong his creation really is. The apostle cries out in sheer pain, wailing that Heracles is a monster that he has been painstakingly putting together for the last 10 years, and Chansu just took it down like it was absolutely nothing at all. The apostle then turns his rage toward his subordinate, Kim So-yi, who is a fourth-generation apostle. He begins to scold her for not joining him in the fight earlier. So he just reminds the dude that he was the one who so confidently went after Chansu all by himself. She tells him she does not see any reason why he should complain to her now, after he just got completely hooped by a simple farmer. So-yi then tells her defeated leader that she is perfectly willing to get her own hands dirty in this fight, but she will be demanding extra fees for her services. After all, her only official role on this mission was just to guide them all to this location and nothing else. Chansu is actually smiling and getting excited about this whole escalating thing. This lasts until So-yi finally turns her terrifying gaze upon him, her eyes glowing an ominous and powerful red. This is the moment when a system tip comes in, telling Chansu that So-yi is now using a skill called the Negation of Life, which is currently placing a powerful curse on her target. The system does not try to sugarcoat just how incredibly dangerous this particular skill is. Before Chansu even knows what is happening, he has already fallen completely under So-yi's dark and powerful skill. The defeated apostle is enraged. He screams in disbelief that Chansu has fallen for So-yi's devious trap. He declares that Chansu is about to witness what truly happens when someone dares to cross the mighty negation faction. However, So-yi interrupts him, screaming at him to remember the real reason why they came here in the first place. Her partner quickly gets a move on. He begins to try and find the Emperor Apple Tree, but he promises to himself that he will get his revenge for his broken creation later on. As the man dashes deeper into the thick woods, he can now faintly smell the powerful aroma of the apples in the air. He figures out that it is just a matter of time before he finally gets there. Suddenly, he notices a faint movement right behind him. But when he turns around to check, he sees that no one is there. the man is left in a state of complete confusion. He does not know where the person he sensed could have possibly gone. And then, in a flash of movement, the legendary sword master Rohan appears high above him in the trees. Thanks to Rohan being such a popular and well-known sword master, the dude instantly recognizes him. However, this new knowledge does not do him much help. Rohan swiftly and mercilessly cuts him down where he stands. Meanwhile, Chansu suddenly opens his eyes. He is completely shocked to find himself back on what appears to be a vibrant version of Earth. He knows the very last thing that he remembered was fighting the apostles of the Negation faction. But now he has suddenly and inexplicably appeared somewhere else entirely. He immediately realizes that things here appear to be totally different from the dying Earth that he knows. Just then, he hears the familiar voices of his parents calling out his name from right behind him. He turns around to see that his beloved mother and father are actually standing right there in front of him. His face completely lights up with pure, unadulterated joy. He rushes towards them without a moment's hesitation. He then jumps directly into their waiting arms and hugs them as tightly as he possibly can, as hot tears begin to roll down his face. Chansu cries out loudly, asking his parents where on earth they have been all this time. He desperately begs them not to go anywhere ever again. But suddenly, his biggest and deepest fear begins to take place right in front of him once more. His parents gently push him aside from their embrace. They then simply turn and walk away from him as he screams at the top of his lungs, begging them not to leave him again. Chansu then screams out in pure emotional pain. But suddenly, Rohan pulls him right out of the weird and terrible dream that he is having. Rohan tells him that he is currently suffering from So Yi's evil trick, and that what he just saw was not at all real. Rohan had struck So Yi on the arm while trying to rescue Chansu from her curse. The female apostle could not believe that the famous sword master Rohan was actually in a remote and backwater place like this. She then crashes hard onto her knees, and an enraged Chansu angrily goes right after her with his deadly sickle. He is more than ready to punish her for making him cry like a child. However, Rohan gets to the fallen So Yi before Chansu can. And with a single clean strike of his own, he easily cuts her down. So Yi's body gets buried by the thick, swampy water of the block. Rohan then apologizes to Chansu for butting in unnecessarily to his fight. However, Chansu is not at all pissed off about this. He is actually very thankful for Rohan's help. Chansu then suggests that they should probably go back to their new base for now, and that they can come back to clean up the rest of this mess later. Rohan then asks Chansu what his future plan is for this new territory. He reveals that his ultimate plan is to become the world's strongest and most powerful force. However, he knows the very first thing that they are going to do is to methodically take over every one of the surrounding blocks. He then asks Rohan if he can keep helping him with this dangerous endeavor. Rohan assures him that he has no good reason to deny his request, as long as Chansu continues to pay him with those delicious apples. Chansu then assures Rohan that he is going to pay him with as many fresh apples as he could possibly want. As they both walk back towards their home base, they happen to run into the little black cat once again. Chansu asks Rohan what the big deal is with this mysterious cat. Rohan then casually tells him that the little cat is actually one of the legendary 7 calamities. He reveals that it is a powerful territorial predator. This incredible revelation completely shocks Chansu. He had previously thought that the cute cat was just a usual and friendly animal. He now realizes that he might have gotten himself killed back then without even knowing it. On the other side of the conflict, the captured negation soldier has found himself locked up tightly inside of a dark and grimy cell for his miserable failure in the battle against Chansu. The system then informs him that a surcharge penalty has now been applied to his account. This is due to the extreme difference in power between his high-level faction and Chansu's surprisingly low-level one. He is now officially required to pay a staggering 1 million gold coins as his punishment for his loss. This completely shocks the dude, because he does not think the calculated power difference between them is fair at all. He loudly refuses to pay the insane amount of money, claiming that there was a powerful sword master who was actively supporting his enemy. The system then officially recognizes the dude's outright refusal to pay as a complete inability to repay the required debt. Therefore, the massive debt would now be transferred directly to the negation faction's accounts. The dude sees this message and he completely freaks out. He urgently begs the system to come back, because he is now completely ready to pay the fine. Just then, he is forcefully dragged right out of his prison cell by a group of menacing undead monsters. And to make his already terrible situation even worse, a very scary high-ranking negation apostle, a woman named Choi Danha, suddenly shows up to see him. She icily tells the defeated dude to very carefully explain to her exactly what happened during his mission, if he does not want to suffer a fate that is even worse than death. The terrified man quickly tells Danha that he had successfully found the secret cultivation site for the legendary Emperor's apple. Danha immediately believes that the dude is just lying to her in a desperate attempt to save his own skin. But he swears that it is the truth, telling her that the legendary Rohan himself was the one who had single-handedly disrupted all of his well-laid plans. Danha still does not want to believe his story. She knows for a fact that the reparations for his loss would not have been set so incredibly high if the mighty Rohan had actually fought alongside Chansu in that battle. But the dude continues to desperately tell Danha that he is telling her the complete and honest truth. He even mentions that So Yi was also completely defeated in that very same battle, a piece of information that comes as a complete and utter surprise to Danha. She then stands up from where she has been sitting and slowly begins to walk towards the terrified man. The dude almost loses his little manly ego as the scary and powerful lady calmly walks up right next to him. Danha then tells the dude that they unfortunately cannot hold So Yi accountable for her own failure, which now means that he will be the only one who will have to suffer the dire consequences of their failed mission. Danha then smiles evilly at him while she informs him that she has a new proposition for him to consider. She forcefully grabs the dude's head. She then places him under a dark and binding magical contract that will make him a virtual prisoner until he successfully fulfills all of her wishes. She commands the dude to immediately head back to the apple cultivation site and to start working there for them. The man argues that what she is asking is completely impossible, but Danha then threatens to turn him into a mindless undead creature himself if he does not fully cooperate with her plan. She lets him know in no uncertain terms that the only way he is ever getting out of this new and terrible mess is to find a way to successfully infiltrate the secret apple cultivation site for her.